Divine ones, how are you guys today? It seemed like it's been a couple of days since I saw you guys last on here, or came on here rather. Because technically I don't see any of you guys. You see me, but it would be nice to see some of you guys. I want to say hello and gratitude to those of you that have subscribed to my channel and you find it interesting or helpful in some kind of way. The things that, I have to say. And of course, everything that I have to say is truly coming from my heart. They are personal experiences that I have went through at some point in my journey, or am currently experiencing or going through. But I just want to extend a huge amount of gratitude to those of you that have, found my channel, and you find my information interesting. I hope the volume is high enough because I didn't check that before I started recording, and usually I do that. So I did not do that. But I hope you guys are well. I hope that you guys are having a good day, if it's a day where you are presently as you're watching this, and if not, I hope that if it is night where you are, that you are having a good night. And if not, as I always say, I hope that you are taking the steps to make things better for yourself in your life. But I've had a busy day. I was off today as my schedule is changed. It's like a double-edged sword because I will have longer days by 4 hours, but I will have an additional day off. So I will have 3 days in a row. So that will be the perk. So that is where my schedule is changing, and I had an additional day off today because I, decided I wanted to have that for myself, because I have a lot of things going on in my personal life, but all good things. But I'm having to build something from scratch by myself, so it requires a lot of time, a lot of dedication, a lot of brain work, and more than I would say footwork. But it's the brain work for now, and then the footwork is going to come later. But I'm just like, oh my goodness. So I was like, I'm going to take today before I start my new schedule. But the cool thing about it is I'm off today. I'll be working tomorrow, which will be a longer day. It'll be a 12-hour day, and then I'll be off for 3 days in a row. So I guess it's like a nice trade-off, the way that I did it. And when I did it this way, I didn't think about it. I talked to somebody and they was like, if I were you, and I was like, well, yeah, if I were me too, yeah, I'm definitely taking Thursday off. But I hope you guys are well. I really, really honestly do hope that you're well. As you know, 336 is, I'm seeing that. You might want to say it, not spray it. I'm spitting and stuff. Sorry, y'all. I hope that you all's healing journey is going well. Mine is going well, very well actually at this point. Things are, like I said, starting to lighten up, and I'm noticing the pressure releasing. I would say by the week. It's more of a by the week type of feeling, not by the day. And so that is making me feel even more better, or more better, or whatever, however you want to say it. It's making me feel even better than how I felt the week before. So I'm loving that. Anytime we can relieve pressure off of ourselves, and pressure can be in many forms. It can be on our finances, it can be through anxiety, through stress, through depression. It can just come in different forms. So I'm starting to feel all of that kind of lift off. And I'm feeling very, very good about the future and what it holds for me in my situation. Because like I said, I will stop at nothing to reach all of my goals. And by me recently publishing my first book, that was a huge goal for me. And I'm really, really excited about that because that was such a very tough journey. And, me just simply wanting to tell my story, needing to tell my story. It was like I was faced with adversity after adversity after adversity. And it was almost like, the enemy was like, okay, well, how bad do you want to tell your story? How bad do you want to snitch on us? Because we're going to throw everything at you while you are planning to do so. And I was like, okay, bring it. Come on and bring it. You know what I mean? I'm just like, I'm not scared of no devil. I'm not scared of no demon. I'm not scared of no entity. I'm not scared of nobody coming toward me with whatever, falseness or whatever. I don't care. People can come at me with whatever because I'm not going to back down. I will stop at nothing. Losing the war is not an option. So I'm just like, bring it. You know what I mean? And I am like the queen or goddess of, when people say things that are not in favor of yours truly, I know how to not say anything. I feel like the best response, unless you feel the need to defend yourself, is no response at all. And that's where I'm at in my life. I will not respond to something in a minute. And I feel like it makes the enemy even more upset. But as we're talking about the enemy, guys, come on in here and have a seat. We're going to have class today again because I'm not going to be freelancing what I'm saying. I took some notes and I did some research and I took some notes today. So I wrote something in my notebook. You know what? I went to Five Below again. I'm not overspending, so don't worry. I haven't fallen back into that trap of overspending, but I did want to treat myself to something. It's been a few weeks back now, and I got me a new notebook, and it's like Spiral. I'm not crazy about Spiral, but, I like what it says. It says, let's change the subject. So, I have a thing with notebooks, so I was like, I'm gonna go ahead and grab that because I love what it says. And then it has, like, many pages. It doesn't have, like, the perforated sides that you can tear them out, but I mean, this is like the rugged tear out, if you tear these out. But nonetheless, I like that you can tear them out and then I can separate them. Because I just put all kind of notes in my notebook for everything. I put all kind of notes in here. It's not just for one specific subject. And that's why I get notebooks where I can tear the pages out. Because I can organize them, however I want after I tear them out. Or organize them wherever they go. But as we're talking about the enemy, which is the opposition, which is, whatever you are battling or we are battling as a collective, that goes against what we stand for and what we're trying to do. We're going to be talking about, some spiritual warfare to an extent here. I want to talk about today come on in here, let's have a seat, okay? I'm going to talk about signs that you are under spiritual attack. So y'all going to have a seat. Welcome to my classroom today. So I'm not going to be freelancing it. Like I said, I took some notes and I went through specifically what I wanted to talk about because some people will mistake being under spiritual attack for them just having, being dealt a tough, hand of cards when it comes to life. That they, have the worst luck or their life is cursed. Now, the life cursed thing, I do firmly believe in that and that is a real thing. That is something that you can get with a spiritual practitioner to work out. You can team with a trusted and truly gifted practitioner, a practitioner of God, because you have light practitioners and you have dark ones. So you have to be careful who you're choosing to work with and really do your research and homework on that person or those people or that group. But you got to be so careful because you have so many people out here that just want to get paid. And, they are really off into some dark shit. But they're claiming that they are, here to help. And that they are of light, but they're not. And so people, they show you who they are. They tell you who they are, but like I said, you would have to use your discernment. You would have to use your intuition and just kind of give it some time if you're not sure. If there's any sign of confusion or just any sign of something feeling off or you just don't feel good, I wouldn't work with that person or those people or that organization or whatever service or use whatever services that is. So in cases where you're dealing with a curse, which I was at one point, and I will talk about that more down the line. The person I teamed with, they had a lot going on, but that was the person that I was assigned to work with. And the other part of it, but they had a lot going on, that was for me to work with them on. And I did my part, but they were beyond my assistance. So like I said, and I've written about this in my book, when you realize that you cannot help someone because they know every damn thing, or, they just refuse to listen to you and they reject you and reject you and reject you in whatever way that is. And that could be in the form of them just not being receptive to what you have to say or acting like you don't know what you're talking about or, whatever, just shit like that. Then, you have to just leave that where it's at and just leave it alone. And stop pressing for it, because if somebody is not putting forth the effort and showing you that they really want to change and receive your help, you have to leave it alone. You have to save yourself time, because if you were assigned to that person to help them and they dismiss you, then you've essentially done your job. I wouldn't press it any further, and I've been in that situation myself. Just leave it. You did what you were assigned to do, leave it alone, and then move forward on to the next person that can actually use your help and wants your help and needs your help and is willing to change. And is showing you that they are valuing your time by working with you and taking heed to the advisement that you're giving them. So let's go ahead and get into it. I've talked enough. 1, 2, 3 as I said that. All right, so signs that you are under a spiritual attack. Okay, so sudden unexplainable shifts in your well-being, such as abrupt loss of desire for spiritual practices. There will be profound physical or mental exhaustion, sudden relationship conflicts, crippling doubt, and an overwhelming sense of fear, anxiety, or despair. All right. Experiencing one or a combination of these signs can indicate a season of spiritual warfare. All right, so let's get into it. Loss of spiritual passion. So that would mean a sudden apathy or disinterest toward prayer. If you pray, setting intentions with spiritual team. Manifesting your heart's desires, root work, reading the scripture, if that is what you're into, studying esoteric subjects, if that's what you're into, or attending spiritual gatherings or church. Okay, so that's going to be a loss of spiritual passion. Extreme fatigue. You will feel an unexplained physical or mental weariness that goes beyond normal tiredness, making it difficult to find focus. The next one is intense doubt and confusion. The doubt can be to a point where it feels crippling. There's confusion over your purpose or sudden paranoia surrounding your relationship with God. All right, let's go to the next one. Sudden relationship strife. Unprovoked conflicts with spouse, boyfriend or girlfriend. family members, or close community, or a strong urge to withdraw from God-centered relationships and choosing to isolate oneself. All right, let's go to the next one. Resurfacing of old addictions. A sudden, overwhelming surge of temptation or return to past habits you believed you had overcome. Strategic timing. Negative events, financial setbacks, or emotional turmoil occurring right after you experience personal spiritual growth or make a positive life change. So these are just some of the signs that you are under spiritual attack. There's many. These were just a few. I feel like these were pretty basic and pretty general. But some of you, may be experiencing this presently, 161 as I'm saying this, or in the past, or it may happen in the future. I've definitely experienced these things in my past heavily. The one with the old addictions popping up, I've experienced that, as I used to have issues with theft. I used to steal. And I used to steal because I was just trying to survive. Some things that I took, it was because I needed them. And some shit I took because, I wanted it and I didn't have the money to afford it. And I felt like, I should have that. So I've struggled with theft in the past. And I no longer have the temptation. I'm done with that. God, she got me right. So there's no issue with that. And I don't foresee there being an issue with that. For one, because I've been delegated to be a spiritual teacher. And not to say that because I've been delegated to be a spiritual teacher that I would be tested by the enemy to, when it comes to my past issues with theft. I'm not saying that. I just know for a fact, I can honestly say that that's not something that I would go back to and do again. Because one thing about it is that, I have a clean record. And I just feel like if I were to become tempted and take something, that would be the time that I would get caught, and then I would have a record. And that's exactly what the enemy wants or would love, would be for me to create a record for myself so that I could have a negative mark against my reputation. Because as we know, as a part of one of the many tactics when it comes to spiritual warfare and the enemy is they always want to draw up assumptions, about you and, slander your name, cause you to have a bad reputation. Even by, causing you to become angry. If you had a past issue with anger, if anger is something that is resurfacing for you. And, anger's coming up and, it would want you to engage in an action where out of anger and, do something crazy and get caught up with the law, for example. And then now you would have a negative mark on your record. And of course, that would be something that could possibly, depending on how bad the action was, ruin your reputation. That's why I said the enemy is very predictable. Once you learn the enemy's tactics, very predictable. 944, as I'm saying this, it's, same shit, different day. They're always trying to ruin your reputation. They're always trying to tempt you to go back into something that you know you left behind and you know that doesn't serve you. Trying to get you to doubt yourself. You know, the list goes on and on. I can count, you know, more than, you know, on, I can just count in so many ways, is what I'm trying to say. But, you know, like I said, and, you know, the enemy just has their tactics, you know, attacking our finances, you know, attacking us through our loved ones, attacking us in our own mind, you know, causing us to have low self-esteem and lack of confidence and lack of self-love and things like that. That's why I say, you know, what the enemy does is they work off of our wounds. So that's why the healing work is so important. Here I am talking about healing again. Y'all know every video I come on here with, I'm going to talk about healing. I am always going to stress healing and how important it is. Because it is. Because as long as we are healing and we are continuing to do our healing work, because healing will never be done, the enemy will have less to work with in how they attack us. And we will have the upper hand. You know, as we are loving ourselves more, as we are healing more, we will have the upper hand, not the enemy. So, my advisement for those of you that are doing your healing work and you're taking your journey seriously, don't, as much as you can, give the enemy the upper hand, you know, because like I said, for me, losing the war is not an option. I don't know about you all, but if you feel the same way that I do, if you on the same program as me where losing the war is not an option, you're just like, whatever it is that's coming up for me, old, you know, emotions, thoughts, things from the past that want to resurface, no, I stop it dead in its tracks. I'm like, okay, nice try, enemy. Yeah, that used to be a problem for me, but it's not a problem anymore. What else you got? Right? They're very redundant, you know, with the way that they operate. So it's like once you learn how the enemy operates, it's like nothing. You know, yeah, things might come up, but you know, you can move past that with grace. You can move past that with ease. But like I said, 222, as I'm saying this, 922 as well. If you, like I said, continue to gain your strength through healing, when these things come back up, whatever they are, in whatever way they come up, in whatever shape or form, right? Your past transgressions, it gets easier as time goes on when you are being attacked. But those are just some of the things that you know that you're under spiritual attack. And you know what you can do. Of course, you know you can pray to God, but you know do the work. You know, ask God to help you heal whatever that is that you are battling with, that you're being attacked with, because the enemy is using something that it knows of yours that is a weakness of yours against you. That is what's going on. Or they could be working through someone that is close to you, like a spouse, like I said, a family member, even a child. You know, pinpoint it, see it for what it is. Don't feed into it. Once you learn, because you have to learn to be able to see what the enemy is doing and how it's doing what it's doing. But once you learn how they operate, don't give it your energy. Don't argue. Don't go back and forth with it. None of that. Because, like I said, once you get to a place along your spiritual journey where you have healed enough to be able to see it, you don't even respond to it. You know, you can say, hey, you know, I'm not going back and forth with you, or hey, I'm not doing this, or you know, you can state what it is that you feel like you need to state. You know, stand your ground, and then move on. You know, the going back and forth and the arguing, that's how you know that you are growing and you are maturing emotionally. You're growing spiritually and you are maturing emotionally. How you know this is because you'll get to a point, like I said, where you won't even react. You won't even say anything. But if, like I said, you feel the need to say something, you can defend yourself. But you can defend yourself without getting out of character. You can defend yourself without getting angry. You can defend yourself without getting emotional, because when you allow the enemy to get you in an emotional state, in whatever way that may be for you in that moment, it will feed off of your wounds, and you will end up losing something. You could lose your finances in some way, shape, or form. You could lose an opportunity. It's like a deduction of some sorts in some area in your life. You could lose energy, literally lose energy. And if you're losing sleep over it, you won't have any energy to replenish, to be able to refocus and recalibrate. But again, you know, these are things that you learn and you strengthen as you are healing along your spiritual journeys. But I send you all so much healing energy, so much love, so much grace. I hope you all are giving yourself grace during this time, that you're being patient with yourselves, that you are loving yourselves as you are healing, because healing is very difficult. There's going to be so many emotions that you are going to experience, and be understanding with yourself. If you have been carrying whatever it is that you are needing to heal all of your life, be gentle with yourself. Be understanding with yourself. If you need to cry in a corner, cry in a corner, and cry in that corner as long as you need to. I've done it. I have literally cried for hours. You know, like I said, after I got that out, because it needs to come out, I felt better. You know, I felt so much better. So releasing in whatever way that is. I heard that there's like these places. I want to go to one of them. Actually, it's called rage rooms. I want to go to a rage room so bad. You know, I think where you can just throw things as a means to release anger and rage and things like that. So I'm going to look into a rage room at some point, and, you know, unleash some anger that way. So, but, you know, whatever, like I said, whatever works for you. Everybody's different. But be gentle with yourself. Be gentle with yourself during this time. Surround yourself with support, not negativity. And if you are in a situation where you kind of can't get away from it because of finances and you would have to make a whole move, you know, I get it. I've been there. You know, I just stayed to myself until I got my money together. And then, you know, once I got out of the situation, I was really able to do the proper healing work, because I was no longer in a chaotic, traumatic, dramatic, stressful environment or situation. And that can not only be in the home, but in the workplace, or dealing with different family dynamics as well. But that is all that I have for you guys. It's already 30 minutes. I usually do see you guys on Friday, so that's going to be up in the air because of my long work day that I have. I still may pop on here and give you guys a short inspirational message. But we'll see how it goes, and then I may see you guys over the weekend too, but we'll just see how things go. 833 as I'm saying this. But, alright guys, until next time, love, peace, and grace.